Hey guys, it's Ryder, or Ryder24, and I'm back with the 4th episode of my EWOW documentation series. If you don't know what EWOW is, then you can either watch EWOW 0A or the first episode of this video diary series in order to get a general idea of what's going on. But anyways, in this video, I'll be documenting my general thoughts and feelings during EWOW 5. As I begin typing the script, it feels like there's a lot outside of the actual prompt and performance to go over, so don't be surprised if this video is considerably longer than the other ones in the series, though I'll attempt to make sure it's not too long. Anyways, starting with EWOW 5A, we see that this episode is being narrated by Purple and Dark again, as they reveal that Cary has been feeling overworked, and yeah, some suspicions I've had for a while now were confirmed when that was said. I mean, with all that he's working on, it's kinda to be expected that one will be burned out, and so I'm glad that there's a bigger team of passionate WoW and or EWOW fans to help out with the process of getting episodes out, so that Cary can have at least one thing taken off his plate. If you somehow see this video, thank you Cary for all that you've done. Your work has left an impact on hundreds of thousands, heck, probably even millions of people in some way, and thank you for giving me, and many others, the opportunity to participate in a camp that I could only dream of being in when I was younger. In our news that was announced in EWOW 5A, there was a change to the rules on voting, so that rather than your vote weight being reduced if you vote more than once, you can now vote up to 20 times with no impact on your general vote weight. But if you vote on the same response more than once in those votes, then the votes for that particular response will have their weight distributed to account for that, in order to avoid someone just voting up their response multiple times. Well, technically this was announced in EWOW 4B, but that was only if you read the description, so there probably weren't too many people who knew about the change before it was explained in 5A. Moving on to 5A though, the prompt that the remaining 5,690 EU hours were tasked with responding to was, "You are sent back to the year 5555 BCE. Convince the people there that you're a god." It was also clarified in 4B that the people in this hypothetical scenario could understand English, so there would be no language barrier, but also that you had no personal belongings with you, so a response that mentions showing the people, say, a phone, would be in violation of the rules. Out of the remaining 5,690 contestants, 4,016 responded. This meant that the top 201 contestants would gain a life, and anyone who places below 2,048th, plus non-responders, would lose a life. It definitely seems like we're starting to weed out the non-responders, as we now jumped up to a response rate of 70% with this round, and I'd have to guess that most of the remaining non-responders will likely lose their final lives in this episode. So I think the response percentages of mid-80s to low 90s in terms of percentage will be the new normal soon. Back to the prompt itself, this one was not easy for me to come up with a decent response for, and as I've waited for 5B to drop, I went back and forth on where I did well or not. But first, I actually wanted to talk about the prompt itself a bit more, and why I'm pretty mixed on it. For what I like about the prompt, I think that people have many differing interpretations on what one could do to make themselves seem like a god figure, and so that opens up a lot of potential for unique responses in that regard, and I think it might be interesting to see how any differing perspectives on that question from voters may affect the leaderboard. However, for as much as I like the rule of no outside technology, as a lot of the responses likely will resort to those items if they were allowed, I think it also really hurts this prompt, and that one limitation really caused people to struggle. In my experience, I had a few ideas float around, such as saying something along the lines of, "I'll guide you" with solely 11 word sentences, though I thought that was a bit too obvious, which I was right about because I saw it multiple times. I also thought, obviously, what about referencing events from around that era? I tried to look up events from around 5555 BCE, but all I really got was a rise in the value of copper or something, and my brain just couldn't think of anything good. Since BCE stands for Before Common Era, I kinda thought of a response that had a small pun and or wordplay, which led me to an alternate response idea of, "I look strange, but where I'm from, I'm a common folk." The reason I didn't end up going with this response was because I felt like if the goal is to convince others that you're this vastly superior being, then maybe a statement like this would be viewed as downplaying myself, and kind of go against that goal by suggesting to the hypothetical people that I'm just an ordinary person and not a god. I also briefly thought about trying to be a sort of oracle, in which I reference a more modern day event, but I feel like that was more so a common misconception with this prompt, so I decided against it, though I think with recent events at the time of the prompt submission period, I could have come up with something that could have scored well, even if it also would have been pretty controversial. There were two other ideas I had in my head though, and I was able to merge them together into my actual response. For one, I wanted to show a mention of wisdom in there somewhere, because I feel like viewers respond well to, well, responses that use that word, though I think it's a bit overused at this point, so I may move away from it in the next few rounds. The other idea that I had was referencing the number 10,917, the number of eliminated EWOWs after EWOW 4B. I had two different ways of going about this idea. One, being that I say the 10,917 fallen EWOWs are like stories that I can pass on to my soon-to-be followers, that they can take the lessons from and become as wise as me. I do like this idea now, but instead, remember how I talked about how I didn't want to downplay myself in this hypothetical scenario? Well, I decided to use that thought and try to make a hypothetical self seem like a superior being, which I thought might make the hypothetical people of the past few memes a god, which I think is also a sort of misconception, but it's what I thought of at the time, so I'll have to live with the result. Anyways, my final response was, you see, my wisdom triumphs over that of 10,917 people combined. Definitely a bit more simple, and I was nervous going in, but still hopeful that other people would have similar struggles to me. All I could do was go through the votes, with my newfound power of 20 votes all weighted the same as if someone had casted a single vote, and scope out my competition. And oh boy, the struggles were real with this one. For one, a lot of people broke the no outside technology rule, which makes me concerned it's not going to be punished as heavily as it should be, but we'll have to wait and see. Other than that, some common themes I saw in responses were the removing my thumb trick, along with the mouth getting covered in tape after the 11th word joke, as Cary said in 4B that the hypothetical skeptics would tape your mouth after saying your 11th word, which was definitely very clever. There were also a lot of people incorporating some of the other obvious ideas, such as predicting future events, and referencing events around 5555 BCE. One more topic before getting into my personal performance. I'm sorry for how long this video is already. I'll stop wasting time now and just get into things so this video doesn't run even longer. There was an important video dropped in between EWOW 5A and 5B that talked about how due to a problem with the EWOW 3 form, there was a chance that data from that form, such as contestants' emails, could have been copied and collected, and to try and prevent any future issues arising, logging into your Google account is now required to respond to future EWOW prompts. I'd seen some panic about it in comments, and so I'd like to say, I'm not expecting that there will be any massive issues that stem from this incident. But also, and especially since I know that there are a lot of younger kids participating in this camp, try not to have personal information, such as your real name, in your email account. I was dumb enough to make this mistake with my main email, but this is also one of the reasons that I've been using an alternate email for responses in this camp. So yeah, stay safe out there, guys. But with that out of the way, with EWOW 5B out, how did I do? Well, with my response of, you see, my wisdom triumphs over that of 10,917 people combined, I placed 1,167th overall, with an overall score of 58.59%. Oh no, my first time scoring below 60%? But considering scores are going down across the board, it's not too concerning right now, as I still beat out 70.94% of our responses, though that is my lowest relative score yet. My standard deviation was high again, being 33.46% out of the 19 votes my response received. And yeah, I can see why this response had mixed reviews. For one, it's a pretty ordinary response. Ordinary isn't always a bad thing. Some clever people can make those kinds of responses work, but that just wasn't really present here, outside of the 10,917 joke, and so I wouldn't be shocked if some voters might have believed it to be an AI response, which is because, secondly, I was kind of banking on the voters to get the reference. I don't want this to sound like I'm calling people dumb, because I think I overestimated that people watching and or voting on EWOW were paying as much attention to statistics as me, an absolute stats nerd for random things. The number of eliminated contestants was only shown in either brief histograms in EWOW 4B or on the EWOW statistics spreadsheet for that episode, in which who knows how many active participants were paying attention to it, let alone eliminated contestants or voters. All this is to say, yeah, I'm not a fan of my response in retrospect, but at least I still remain on 3 lives, which, speaking of, there are now only 1,129 EWOWers who are either at or above where they started at 3 lives, so I guess I'm currently projected to finish in the top 6.79% of all EWOWers at least, assuming things hold as they've been thus far. But anyways, let's talk about... I probably should have separated this into 2 parts. But no, 2 more things to talk about, and I'll let you guys go. First, we got rid of 11 more AI, bumping the count down to 77. However, there are now only 3,760 contestants left after the eliminations in EWOW 5, with the AI now making up 2% of those contestants. So yeah, now I may be hopping on the panic bandwagon. Lastly, EWOW 5B had one more announcement that I have to type into this script. This was talking about cheating. Behind the scenes, there's been a group of people checking through for potential cheaters in EWOW, because of course, some people are so invested in winning a YouTube camp meant to be for fun, that very few people outside of it will actually care about the results of, that they feel the need to cheat to try and gain an advantage. The punishment for this behavior seemed to be taking multiple lives from a contestant, which was something that I did notice and thought, what's up with that? So I'm glad to have that question answered. See guys, all I do is gas out my own response with a single account like a true law-abiding citizen. But with that out of the way, actually, one more thing. I promise it'll be quick. First, special thanks to Northeast Benefactor for shouting me out in their EWOW self-analysis series, and MS and Airplane for mentioning me in their EWOW documentation series. Though going forward, I'll only try to do shoutouts in video for new EWOW documentaries as I become aware of their existence. There will still be the mentions in the description. Sorry to any of the other documentaries if that noise you getting pinged anytime a new round of EWOW passes. But with that being said, I feel it's unfair for the people who I didn't shout out in my first video in the series, so let's do that now. Shout out to I Get Rickrolled Every Day, Chauck, The Boy David, Jolly Pikachu, KTG Official, Madison Airplane, Mr. Oliver, Sand Colored Sky, the other 89 Doges, and the Random Ben. Okay, I think that's everything. I would talk about EWOW 6's prompt, which I actually do quite like and think I already came up with an okay response for, but I'll continue working on it. Anyways, thank you for your time, maybe more of it than usual, and I hope to see you for the EWOW 6 video diary.